Welcome to We're Just Saying with Senator Vickie Sawyer. I'm so grateful to be here, and I want to extend apologies for not being here last week, but I was doing something really interesting and fun, and I quite frankly consider cool. If those of you who have been around North Carolina politics for a long time have heard this name before, and it's Rufus Edmondson. And so he was a former Attorney General and also Secretary of State of North Carolina. Probably most famously, or maybe infamously, was as a young lawyer, was the one who served the subpoena to the Nixon White House. And so he was on a show called State Lines, and I was grateful to be on the show. It's a PBS show that really focuses on politics out of Raleigh. It airs Friday nights at 8:30, Sunday nights as well. Please make sure to check that out if you enjoy hearing what goes on in the week at Raleigh. And you'll see Rufus and myself and Senator Chaudhry and is another political consultant on there. But so forgive me for not being here last week, but I was absolutely fulfilling a fangirl crush because I just really find him interesting, and I've enjoyed watching his politics over the last, I guess 20 years since I started paying attention. And then shortly we're going to have someone else on the air that I really admire. Her name is Becky Gray. In fact, she has been to our area when she was currently or had worked for a long time John Locke Foundation. So those of you, again, who are kind of political wonks, who love Raleigh news and knowing what's going on, the John Locke Foundation was set up many years ago as a think tank and a conservative bend to politics, and she was a driving force upon that. She just recently had moved over in a new role, lobbying, and actually she is a government affairs representative for Blue Cross and Blue Shield. You also used to see her on PBS. There was a show called NC Spin, where she was on with Rufus as well and a few others. And so she's going to be joining us here in a few minutes because Blue Cross and Blue Shield has made it in the news recently. You heard about this bill that from Senator Perry, who was on our show a few weeks back. There has been some more news, a lot of misinformation. I understand why people don't listen to politics, because there are three sides to every story: the truth, not the truth, and the one they want you to hear. And so this is an effort from Becky and myself to really walk through the provisions of the bill at a high level so that you guys will understand exactly what this bill entails, and that it really will over time benefit the policyholders of Blue Cross and Blue Shield, which I'm actually one of them as a state employees health plan recipient. So I'm happy to have Becky on, and she's going to be calling in a few minutes. But then after Becky, we're going to talk about some really exciting things, something that I was grateful to see and had a little bit of input on, which was the elections bill, in response to a lot of your concerns that I've heard locally and at the state level. We need to make sure that North Carolina elections are fair and secure, and they have proven to be, but we are making them even more. And so the North Carolina Senate unveiled its elections bill this week. We're going to unpack that, dig into it, and talk about it. We also want to talk about some other more controversial bills that we've spoken about before, but this week the Senate passed sports betting. We're going to unpack that after the bottom of the hour. Also, the House hears medical marijuana. Then we're going to move into something that's really near and dear to my heart, and finally something that I hope that gets across the finish line, and that is a rework of the Department of Transportation board members. And we're going to discuss how that is important, especially for our area, because transportation is just the lifeblood and the number one concern for most of the constituents, especially in South Iredell and North Mecklenburg County. How do we get back to work and play and not get stuck in traffic, and why has it been this way, and why I work so hard on transportation? So I'm excited for that. And then as the days of our lives continue, my continued frustration and journey on straightening out the High School Athletic Association turns another page this week, so we're going to work into that. But as we await Becky Gray's call, again, let's talk about this bill that she's going to discuss. Blue Cross and Blue Shield is a regulated company, and she's going to go into more of this, that is a health insurance company that is regulated by the Commissioner of Insurance. And as part of that, they have to ask for permission to do certain things. They do yearly filings, make sure their financials are up to date, and they have to always work through that with them. So we've invited Becky on the Gray. We have invited Becky Gray on the radio show today to just really get to hear the perspective from the company so that we can help ease any fears that some may have read or heard or seen in their local newspaper about how this bill is going to bring Armageddon in as far as the insurance world is concerned. So I do want to say I think I have Becky on the line. Becky, thank you so much for calling in the show, and so grateful for you to spend your beautiful Friday morning with me.
Oh, Senator Sawyer, it's always a pleasure, and I just appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about the bill, like you said, alleviate any concerns or fears that anybody might have. As you sort of alluded to, there has been some misrepresentation, and it's unfortunate because people care very deeply about their health care, and North Carolinians care very deeply about their health care. Mm-hmm. And so as a company that has been in North Carolina for 90 years, providing health care, committed to health care across North Carolina, particularly in our rural areas, very proud of the work that Blue Cross Blue Shield does, and grateful to all of our members across the state and leaders like you who have recognized the need for change when it comes about, and also keeping things stable. So, again, Thank you for the opportunity to join you to talk a little bit about the bill.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I was reminded this week, someone told me a cute little quip and said, I think the only person who really likes change is a 1-year-old with a dirty diaper. So I feel that may be some of the issues here. But let's go back a little bit. Before your Blue Cross and Blue Shield days, a lot of our listeners are supporters and readers of the John Locke Foundation. Can you give me just a few minutes of your background there before you took on the Blue Cross and Blue Shield role?
Sure. And I do know many of your constituents and folks in your district. The John Locke Foundation, as many people know, is a free market, limited government think tank that has been in North Carolina for over 30 years. And I was privileged to be part of that staff for the last 17 years until I joined Blue Cross. And, so I have a long career, and Vickie, you and I have known each other a long time, and we have a shared commitment to limited government. We understand free markets. We understand that, people need to be in a position to take care of themselves and their family with limited but regulated government oversight of things. And so the transition from the John Locke Foundation to Blue Cross has been very interesting, but it also was kind of a natural change for me. We dealt with healthcare issues at the John Locke Foundation, in addition to a lot of other free market economic issues. But as I looked forward of where North Carolina has been, where it's going, the changes that have been made since you and your colleagues, Senator Sawyer, took over the General Assembly, the many changes in tax reform, in regulatory reform, in education reform, transportation, and I know you're at the forefront of that leadership team. Healthcare seemed like a natural sort of transition of where are the greatest opportunities and the greatest need for changes and reforms. And this opportunity at Blue Cross Blue Shield came up for me professionally, and it really fit philosophically with where I had been and where I wanted to go. I wanted to continue to make a difference in North Carolina. And again, the healthcare field just felt ripe for reforms and changes. We've seen so many changes at the federal level with the implementation of Obamacare, which, in my view, completely changed the field of healthcare. So how do we adjust to that? How do we in North Carolina, again, with our unique positioning in North Carolina, with our very rich, very robust urban areas, the suburban areas where many people are choosing to live and commute into those urban areas, and then our rural areas that are such a rich part of North Carolina's culture and heritage and history, how do we keep all of those things going so that no one falls behind? And along with the economic engines and the economic impacts in people's lives, healthcare is such an important one of those. If you aren't healthy, if you don't have access to health care, if you don't have access to those preventive measures, you're not able to get your children the health care that they need or your elderly parents, we're going to fall behind. And so this commitment of caring about North Carolina, caring about people having the best opportunities, was a real natural transition for me, again, from the John Locke Foundation to Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is where I find myself today.
Yeah, well, no, and I appreciate that because for me, watching you from afar, I mean, it really has been a great fit. And you've done amazing advocacy in both roles, but this new role that you have, I guess it's not new anymore. You've been there since the beginning of session, a little bit before that. What a session it's been for you in the healthcare space. But let's drill down on this one bill. Why, I guess there's some concern, or what I've heard feedback from is, what is the purpose of the bill? Why does Blue Cross and Blue Shield need this? And, why is the time now? And why is it not 2 years from now or 3 years from now? Why do we need this legislation today?
Yeah, and that's such a good question. And this is why you're one of my very favorite legislators, because at the very beginning you asked that question, do we need this? And if so, why? And if so, when? Because, that tells me as always, you've got your steady hand on that lever of the appropriate role of government. So for Blue Cross Blue Shield in this particular situation, I mentioned Blue Cross Blue Shield is a 90-year-old company, only here in North Carolina. Our headquarters are in North Carolina. And we have been operating under rules and regulations that are not only 90 years old, and some things have changed since then, of course, but the rules and regulations and the restrictions that we have been in place for 90 years. And they apply, many of these restrictions only apply to Blue Cross Blue Shield. They don't apply to our competitors who are operating in multiple states and have a lot more resources to draw on than Blue Cross does. So we were restricted by these 30-year-old regulations that kept the Blue Cross insurance business, along with investments and subsidiaries and things that we were trying to do, and you have to do in today's market to remain competitive, of investing in some subsidiaries to ensure the quality of the product that we are offering. And all of this was under an existing structure that really we have to go to the Department of Insurance. We have to imagine as a business owner, you have to go to the government and ask if and how much of your own money you can spend on things to improve your business. Right. And that was where we found ourselves, and we've done very well for the last 30 years. But in this quickly changing, emerging healthcare landscape and economy, we have found that we are not able to be as competitive as we're going to need to be moving forward. So we looked at different structures and how we might be able to manage and to grow and to create a fair playing field. So this is enabling legislation that would allow us to restructure in the way that our competitors are structured. It's not a unique, different kind of structure. It has the insurance entity and then a not-for-profit parent holding company, and then under the holding company is room for subsidiaries and affiliates to grow. This is exactly how our competitors are structured. It's how many businesses are structured. It's how the hospital systems in North Carolina are arranged and structured. So again, this wasn't some new, wackadoodle thing that, we came up with. We're simply asking for the ability to do that. Now, the other thing that makes Blue Cross Blue Shield a little bit different, and to your point, Senator Sawyer, about why do we need this legislation? Most companies can just do this. They go to the board of directors, or they can do this on their own. Because of our unique position within North Carolina, we have to go to the General Assembly to get permission to do this. So that's what this legislation has been about. Why now? Well, we're seeing every day that we're losing footing in a competitive market, and we wanted the ability to do this before we fell so far behind that it would be difficult to catch up from there. We're seeing opportunities every day to make our product better, to better serve our customers, to better serve the people of North Carolina. And we're seeing those slip away because of our competitive disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that summation. And so, in my Southern girl way, I guess I would kind of say that you guys as a company have been playing the game of Mother May I with an overprotective parent. Is the way I kind of sum that all up for me and how I figure it out, because you're exactly right. So if you guys need to have that freedom and flexibility with certain parts of your business so that you can diversify your book, right? So that you can be more competitive across for every policyholder, not just in that space. So it's kind of like for me, my husband and I have an insurance agency, and so we also want to do real estate. Well, for my insurance way, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would have to say, Commissioner Causey, can I please do real estate today? And if I do, how much percentage of that can I do? And if I do that, how many employees can I have? But yet real estate has nothing to do with insurance. And you guys are similarly saying the same. Hey, let's still be a rock star health insurance company that provides health care coverage to over 100 or all 100 counties in North Carolina at its most competitive price that we can. We'll maintain the same amount of reserves in the bank. In other words, our savings account is going to be just as healthy as it has to be and should be to protect our policyholders. But yet, if there's something left over, then we're going to be able to go out and do these. I don't know if I'm not saying it's real estate or whatever it is, but these other, comparable things that you would like to do as a company to begin to grow and be stronger in the future. Is that kind of a summation of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And another question that we've gotten on this bill too is, as you asked, not only why do you need it, why now, what's the deal with this? But the other question that we've been asked is, okay, if you have this additional flexibility, mm-hmm. like what would you do with it? Mm-hmm. When you said, okay, it's probably not going to be real estate, what would you do with it? Well, actually, we have a history of this, and we also put it into the law so that it's not just the way Blue Cross Blue Shield does things, but it's actually part of the law, and that was part of this bill that passed, is that the subsidiaries and the investments that we would be able to have more freedom to do more of have to be complementary, associated with the insurance business. Mm-hmm. So we can't go out and buy, a bicycle company in China, and I'm being very facetious there. Mm-hmm. The kind of investments that we have made and we're looking at doing more of are things that, let me give you an example. We invested in a company called FastMed that was a North Carolina company, started in Clayton. We provided the seed money for FastMed. FastMed are urgent care centers where people can go. This is the thing a lot of people have experience with, and on the weekend, if you, cut yourself doing some yard work, you can go to an urgent care center rather than going to the emergency room. Mm-hmm. It takes less time. It costs less. It's more convenient. It's a more appropriate place for you to receive that care than going and sitting in the emergency room for half a day. So we've invested in those, and we have built that to where there are now, there's 55 FastMed facilities and 30 counties. Wow. But we've bumped up a limit of we can't invest that anymore. This flexibility will allow us to do more of those kind of things. And Senator Sawyer, where we're putting those FastMed facilities are in rural areas where there isn't a hospital close by, so that it offers that additional options for folks. We're also putting them in some of the urban areas like downtown, where there is a huge demand on the emergency room, and these FastMed facilities are alleviating that pressure and that demand on the emergency room, freeing those facilities up to care for the people that need the care offered in the emergency room. And then people who, again, sprain an ankle or cut their finger doing yard work are able to have the option of going to a FastMed facility. Mm-hmm. That's one example of some of the investments that we've made. Another one that I'll mention, we're investing heavily in behavioral health treatment centers, in substance abuse treatment centers. Wonderful. And again, this is across North Carolina. We're going to be doing more of that. Another offer that we're doing, and we're partnering with other medical providers and other entities in the healthcare space. We can't do all this ourselves. Right. Blue Cross Blue Shield is not a state, bajillion-dollar company.
Mm-hmm.
We're a small player in this, but we want to make the maximum use of what we can do and the impact that we can do. So we're partnering with, another example is we bought a company called Allo that provides the back office services for small physician groups.
Okay.
So that we partner with those small doctor groups to take care of, all the paperwork and that kind of stuff that they have to do so that they can stay in business. And this is, particularly important in our rural areas where, we're having more and more deserts of health care. So if we can keep those small physician groups open and operating, that's better for North Carolina, it's better for our communities, it's better for health care, and it also drives down the cost of health care while offering a better service. Mm-hmm. And I have to mention, too, that these investments that I'm talking about that we have made, we're going to be doing more of, serve not only our Blue Cross members, but they serve anybody in the community. You don't have to have a Blue Cross insurance card to go to a FastMed ER center. You don't have to have a Blue Cross insurance card to go to one of these small physician practices or the substance abuse treatment centers that I mentioned. Wow. So that's the kind of thing that we've been doing. We just have been limited in how much and how we can do it. With this legislation, we will be able to do more of that and use the money better and better to the benefit of not only our members, but citizens across North Carolina.
Wow, that is absolutely great information. In fact, you taught me a few things, and I'm so excited to hear, especially about the investment in behavioral health and substance abuse. I think that's something that affects each and every one of us, whether we care to admit it or not. And Becky, before I let you go, is there any final thoughts that you'd like to share with everyone, other than I'm, again, one of your favorite senators? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, that of course. That goes without saying, of course. Now, just, a little bit of a status on the bill. So the bill passed the House 86-26, passed the Senate 41-5 with strong bipartisan support. The bill has been sent over to the governor's office, and we hope that the governor will sign it into law soon. And then, this will be law. There is another step, though. There is lots of guardrails and protections put into this. The actual implementation is subject to a lot of regulation through the Department of Insurance. And so we look forward to that process and are just grateful, Vickie, to you and the other senators and House members who saw the need of Blue Cross, recognized the value of Blue Cross North Carolina. And we look forward to serving the people of North Carolina for the next 90 years. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about it today.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Becky, and have a wonderful, beautiful, sunny weekend. So thank you so much. Again, everyone.
Thanks, you too.
Yes, ma'am. Again, everyone, that is Becky Gray, who is the Government Affairs for Blue Cross and Blue Shield. It is a complex topic. Healthcare is always difficult to explain, often hard to understand, and it can be very politically expedient to yell and scream at insurance companies. It makes sense to say insurance company bad, and it takes about what you just heard, about 25 minutes to explain how this isn't a bad bill. So I do want to say thank you so much for listening to that explanation, understanding why I voted for the bill, because I do believe that it's a great piece of legislation to help Blue Cross and Blue Shield be strong in the next 90 years to come. So thank you so much for listening to the show. After the break, we're going to get into all kinds of fun transportation and medical marijuana and sports betting and election bills. What could go wrong? Thank you so much for listening. We'll be right back. today. So happy to be back in Iredell County for a lovely Friday. Hopefully, I know everybody's Memorial Day was washed out, so maybe we can use those plans to have an enjoyable weekend because it's going to be so lovely. Speaking about part of that weekend, one of my favorite breakfasts that really almost didn't come back after COVID, and I'm so proud of Priscilla and those folks up at V Point Ruetan Club. They are having their ham breakfast tomorrow from 7 to 10 a.m. That is the V Point Ruetan Club. It's 2794 Old Moxville Road. Make sure to go out and support that group. I really enjoy going up there when I'm able to. So make sure that you can make some time for some good old country breakfast. But as discussed, we are going to open up the line. So I will be taking your calls for this last half hour. Feel free to call 704-873-1400. That's 704-873-1400. But let's get into something that I'm incredibly excited about. It's really policy wonky, but yay, Senate. And that is the Department of Transportation Board rework. Guys, I know that we've talked about this so many times before, but when I worked to get to be the co-chair of transportation for the Senate, I did not get what I really needed, which was a magic wand, because that's the only way that you can actually affect change in my position about how, when, and why roads are built. Remember, the way we are structured with the Department of Transportation is that the Secretary of Transportation is a direct appointee of the Governor of North Carolina. So the Governor of North Carolina, Governor Cooper, is the one who decides who runs the Department of Transportation. Now, from there, the department is also having a governing body called a board. And the board is just like you and I always talk about, as a group of folks who come together who set the policy direction for an agency. Well, the board, until maybe 5 years ago, was completely 100% appointed by the governor. So if you are sitting on a board and you are a direct appointee of a governor and you really enjoy being a part of that board, then when the governor calls, you have every incentive to listen to what he says and to do as he asks, which we have seen at the current Board of Transportation. So the current board is made up of a majority of Governor Cooper's appointees. Now, some of them are really great people. I've enjoyed working with them. But again, I'm like their neighbor. I am not their boss, or I'm not their equal. I am just the co-chair of a Senate committee in the General Assembly. So I liken it in my position to very similarly like, I don't know, living beside a bad neighbor. And the neighbor may not make a lot of noise, but that neighbor never mows their grass. And so the Board of Transportation and the Department of Transportation, for me, has been like a bad neighbor. We go to work every day at the same time, and I always ask them, hey, are you going to mow that grass? Hey, are you going to get that old car out of the yard? Hey, can you do something because your dogs are getting out? And they go, yeah, sure, why not? We'll try to figure it out. We'll work on it next week. Or maybe I'll mow my grass the week after. Or maybe I'll get that car moved. But, I'm not really worried about it. And meanwhile, the grass continues to grow, the yard continues to rot, and the dog continues to come in and poo in my yard. And that is absolutely what I feel like as a co-chair for transportation, because I can set policy that I hope that they would agree to. But once the bill is passed, it goes directly to the governor, and they see fit as how the money is spent and how the policy is done. And the Board of Transportation decides when, where, and how the roads are built. We have in North Mecklenburg and South Iredell, and to some degree also in Statesville, but absolutely in high growth areas, have seen the problems with this setup, and we have continually asked for better results. It has gotten, 2017 and 18, we know they ran out of money. The board was not accurately making sure that the department did not get over their skis. And what had happened since then has still been a continual nightmare. The nightmare being that transportation projects like the road widening in Highway 73 or the road widening in Highway 150, although they were promised and began in 17, 18, and 19, we're now looking at year 2025, 26. That is too long. Those are broken promises that the Board of Transportation has made to our communities and have yet to deliver. So this week you've seen and will continue to see that the General Assembly is absolutely clawing back some of that direct report power, because we understand that although well-intended, the board is directly, the majority of the board currently is directly reportable to Governor Cooper. So again, remember that bad neighbor. Now we're going to say, hey, let's do this. Since you're not mowing your yard and you're not getting that old car out and you surely aren't going to take care of your dog, we're going to go over there and find people who can. And so the bill that was heard in front of the House this week is really has a lot of those board movements around, but the one that I'm very excited about is Senate Bill 512. So House members rewrote a section of the bill that reworks that appointments to the number of state boards, but the incumbents on the Board of Transportation, their term will end at the end of this month. There's been a lot of concern in the General Assembly. I just talked about how the current board and the current administration has handled the money that the department has, and that is, again, we feel this every day. The reason why I work so hard to be on the board, to co-chair transportation, is to somehow bring your voice to Raleigh so that they can hear how frustrated we are with their broken promises. And so thankfully, we now are putting teeth behind that because they had not listened. Remember, this is a Board of Transportation that has a 10-year construction program that until maybe a year and a half ago, until some of the Republican appointees had been uncovered this stuff, they were adjusting these projects in the 10-year construction plan, also known as the STIP, at a 1% inflationary rate. That is absolutely asinine when we know the inflation is skyrocketing and the bids are coming in for these projects between 20 to 40%. And what that means is that they were artificially adjusting for inflation in a 10-year project. That meant that those promises that they made are not going to be able to be kept. And they knew that at the time. And that is, to me, disingenuous. It is a trouble and a problem. They readjusted it, I think, to a 3% inflationary rate, which I still think is a little on the nose. But they continue to do things and provide politics into our road construction, in areas like Cornelius and Huntersville and Mooresville and Statesville are getting left out, and it is time to change. So part of this bill will absolutely take back the majority of the board's appointments and take it away from the governor and give it to the people, and the people being those of the General Assembly. We are more directly in contact with our constituents than one person and one man over all 10 million North Carolinians. So this will give us the right to have those folks who represent you in those positions. So we'll see what goes through. The bill got heard last week. They revised it to go, and then the idea is that the board appointments will end at the end of June, and there'll be a new board appointed. Now, remember, this isn't a total switch, because there are some General Assembly appointments after we bailed them out. I mean, remember, we, the General Assembly, you, the public, bailed out the Board of Transportation because they overspent their budget by $748 million, had a slew of issues with the auditor a slew of financial issues that the state auditor had pointed out. They had made gains in this, and they've been a little bit better. But again, I see it on a daily basis. They are trying to claw back some of those transparency measures that we have put in, and I am standing strong and saying, no, we're not going to do that. So hopefully we can get those appointees back and take over the Board of Transportation so that you can be heard better. We will continue and look at my Facebook page. I will continue to try to put out more updates about local road construction projects as they come. Again, it's like pulling teeth to get this information out of the agency. I just, continually ask, like, can you please give me an update on 150? Can you please give me an update on Highway 73? Let me know what's going on there. And I get different, emails every once in a while, sporadically. But the communication, I think when we do this Board of Transportation, when we switch over the appointments, we're going to have so much better communication between electeds and appointeds in the transportation to bring it to you. So continue to work. I don't have a magic wand. I'm trying. I wish I did. But in lieu of the magic wand and being able to control all that is transportation, this is a way that we are continuing to work to better represent Iredell County. Also, if you want to be a part of the show and ask any questions, the phone number is 704-873-1400. Now, I know a lot of folks have been very interested, at least in our local parties, about elections and election integrity is what they call it, or just to make sure that when you go to the poll, your vote counts. I want to take a hats off to the North Carolina Republican Party, especially under the leadership of Michael Whatley. He really did make sure that the last presidential cycle and the last election cycle, we had polling monitors there. We had a great network of not only volunteers, but paid staff and attorneys to address any issues. We continue to monitor and try to refine the law to do what we can. And so this week, the Senate elections bill came out, and this is Senate Bill 747. I do want to clear up something that I heard actually from our own camp that was not correct. During the process, a lot of, in most any bill, when especially of this type of magnitude, we talk to a lot of people. We try to get stakeholder process from a lot of folks. And so this bill from our elections chairs was absolutely taken into account and crafted, and they did hear from a lot of folks. Interesting enough, some of those folks are taking credit that they were the ones who wrote the bill, or somehow the bill changed after they got there. That is not the case. The bill was the same before the meetings as they were after the meetings. There's no Trump lawyer that crafted the bill behind closed doors. It's none of that. This basically was, we've got elections bill. We know you're interested in elections. So these stakeholders come in and listen. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And that's exactly what happened. So hats off to Senator Ralph Heiss and Senator Warren Daniel for really working hard and continuing. Those two have done a lot in this space for North Carolina, and this bill continues to do that. All right, mail-in ballots, number one, always an issue, and especially during COVID, and we saw the pain of when the court allowed for an extension of time to allow for mail-in ballots. But here's the deal. When folks mail in a ballot, then they should or do not have the same or any more privileges of than anyone else. So if your ballot if you miss Election Day in person, then you miss elections, right? So if it's important enough to vote, then you're going to vote in person. If you don't have the time to come in, you can absolutely mail in your ballot, but that ballot needs to be received on Election Day, just like someone else who shows up in person. So that is the first provision. But before we go on any further, Isaiah, so you're telling me we have a call? All right, welcome, and thank you for calling the show. This is Vickie Sawyer, and thank you for calling in.
Hey, Vickie, this is William.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you would have an answer for this, maybe Jeff McNeely.
Okay.
I know he's over the project in Highway 150 down in the Mooresville area with all the urban development that's going on down there and has been for years. It needs to get caught up there. And with the interstate Crossroads of America here in Statesville project going on, it's probably not priority. But have you heard any news about what they're going to do with the Signal Hill Mall in Statesville area? Do you know? Yes,
sir. I do not know for sure. I mean, let me go back to, so Jeff McNeely is got the same title I do, just on the other side. And so neither one of us control any of the local construction of roads. We just sort of like politely and completely ask like what's going on, or even the development. So that's a local function at the local level. So, but then in the Signal Hill Mall, no, but I am excited. I hear there's some buzz around it. It may be for sale, may not be, but I don't want to say it on the radio because I don't know for what was going on. But I definitely believe that there's a great opportunity for redevelopment. I heard from the DOT that the 77 and 40 interchange will absolutely be, I say absolutely, is due for completion and be in the permanent road pattern by the end of this year or beginning first quarter of next year, and hopefully will be done by the end of 2024. So that will be done.
They've been coming along with it pretty quickly because this past winter we really didn't have a winter, so it didn't really slow them down. So they got the interchange done that crosses back over 40 to get on to 77 south, coming from the east, headed 40 west. They got that ban done just recently, so it's coming along pretty good. I just didn't know if you knew about the mall area. I think that would be a good area to open up something for the kids here local that can't get down to Carowinds or some of the bigger amusement parks or something like that. Maybe they could do something with it like that or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And thank you so much for the call. I appreciate that, William. I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the Signal Mall Hill area. And actually, for all of Statesville, I mean, Statesville really, once this interstate is complete, or even before the interstate is complete, I mean, it is just in the best spot to really shine. And I'm excited to see, and I can see the growth pushing up from Mooresville. I know that the city of Statesville is very cognizant of that and trying to take a thoughtful and productive approach to handling that growth. Hopefully they'll be able to learn a little bit from the pains that we have down in South Iredell, so folks in Statesville don't have and experience those same thing. But regardless, it is good growth, and I'm grateful that it's happening in Statesville, and so thankful that 77 and 40 is nearing that completion. Going back to, we have another call, so thank you so much for calling in. You're on with Vickie Sawyer. Thank you for calling the show.
Hi, Vicki. I just got a question for you since you're on the transportation.
Yes, sir.
Why do we put street lights up and nobody maintains them?
Oh, good question. So I do know that the roads in North Carolina are dually maintained. So major roads and like state highways are maintained out of Raleigh by the Department of Transportation. The city roads are actually, there are city roads that the cities or municipalities are the ones that maintain. Now, of those that they do, they may have those street lights, which I'm thinking are more in the city and maybe under the city purview. So if that's the ones you're thinking about, and if you look around,
like the freeways around here, you see pole after pole laying on the ground for years, and nobody ever puts them back up keeps the lights working on them.
Yeah, good question.
So it just makes your city not look good when people pull up.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, when you see those kind of things, email my office, and then I'll send them either to the city or to the board of transportation or to the transportation folks, and see if we can get those handled, because we do definitely appropriate.
I see probably 10 a day.
Okay, good. Yeah, do that. Absolutely, I will happily do that, because you're right. It does. It almost looks like a wasteland when that happens. So I appreciate you.
Just even when you're flying over a town, no town looks better than when you come in at night and see all the streets lit up.
I agree. Good point. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for calling. I appreciate that. So we're going to go back through that elections bill that we're going to talk about. And so as folks are very interested in that, and I'm excited for it to be out there. So mail-in ballots, if you mail it in, it has to be received by a certain date, and that date should be the election day. This is not out of character in other states. I mean, this is the way it happens in other states and the way it can happen in North Carolina. Something that's been very perplexing to me, and I'm glad that we're looking at it, is same-day voter registration. So anywhere in North Carolina, you can go in on the day you vote. You can also register the same day, so that if you forget to register or you don't or you need to vote, you can do same-day voter registration. That I don't have a problem with. The problem that is that how do you know that actual vote is valid? So how do you know that a good actor is not a bad actor? In other words, I, Vickie Sawyer, go to Statesville and same day register, and I vote for Vickie Sawyer, and then I go down into Mooresville and I same day register, and then I vote for Vickie Sawyer, and then I go to Love Valley and same day register, and then I vote for Vickie Sawyer. How do you make sure that doesn't happen? So this bill is a key change, would affect that, and it would say that those voters who cast those ballots would have to cast a provisional ballot. Now, those ballots a provisional ballot does not mean it doesn't count, or in some way that it gets file 13. A provisional ballot, they're set aside by election officials and as they work to verify the voter eligibility. So So you go in, you same day register, you cast your ballot, but your ballot goes into a lockbox with, it doesn't get intermixed into the actual voter that are voting that are already registered to vote. Then that lockbox is taken to the local board of elections, and the local board of elections will work to verify that you are who you are, and that you are a resident in Iredell County or Mecklenburg County if you're voting in Mecklenburg County. Now you can do that a couple ways. They can mail you a letter and ask you to mail it back. If they mail you a letter and it gets undeliverable, then that could cast out your ballot. We actually have that. So part of the General Assembly, you can send out new voter letters. So somebody moves to your area, you send out, welcome to the area. This is your state senator. This is your House representative. When we mail those out and they're newly registered voters, we get a lot back. And that's very concerning. I keep them and I actually turn them over, and there's no, way to figure that out. And so there's a very real concern that people are registering to vote that are not actually living where they say they are, or the people that they say that they report to be. So this will say, okay, you can register to vote, cast your ballot. It's provisional. It goes back. The Board of Elections will try to verify that you are who you are, and then it will be counted. If they can verify who you are, then your vote is counted in the canvassing period. Remember, that's that 10-day period after the election where the state board or the local board will go back through and audit the results, review provisional ballots, and those provisional ballots are actually not just like somebody in the back going, okay, that's a good one, that's a bad one. They actually are reviewed by the locally appointed Board of Elections, and usually the Board of Elections are appointed by the Democrat and the Republican Party, and that is always controlled by whoever's in the governor. So even though Iredell County is a completely Republican county, we have a majority of Democrat-controlled people on the Board of Elections, but when they go in and look at these ballots, it is looked at by that board. So it's not just someone who you could think would be doing up to nefarious works in the back of the Board of Elections. Now, there's another provision that requires the Clerk of Superior Court to notify the state board of people who are disqualified from jury duty because they aren't U.S. citizens. So the state board will review the report and have the county boards of election eliminate any non-citizens from the voter roll. You're like, how could that happen? Remember, when you go and you get your driver's license, you can also register vote at the same time. There are people who are getting their driver's license who arguably so should not be getting them, or they get them as a provision and they miss it. Somehow there's got to make sure that someone's not gaming the system. But when they register to vote, they also register for what? Jury duty. But some people will come up and they will say, well, hey, who wants to go to jury duty? Sorry, Jim Mixon, but who wants to go to jury duty? I don't go to jury duty. And so you say, I can't serve because I'm not a U.S. citizen. So right now that just kind of goes away. This time it will say that, hey, the state board will be notified of that person who has a driver's license, who is a non-citizen, who asked to be excused from jury duty because of their citizenship status. Those people should be removed from the voter roll. We do have another call on the line. I'm grateful for you to call in. I'm Senator Vickie Sawyer. Thank you so much for calling. Oh, okay. Well, good. Now, we also have a fourth provision of the bill is to permit public inspections of absentee ballots at the weekly county board meetings. In other words, that you would have observers that go in and make sure that a bona fide and certified observer can go in and watch the county board actually look at these ballots. I think that's just so good to let people know what's going on. We want to increase the period of time that election records are retained and preserved to 22 months to mirror existing federal legal regulations. That's great. So if somebody has a concern, there's those ballots and that information will be stuck around for 22 months. And we also want to require precinct officials to log the name of any person that is rendering assistance to a voter. We've heard stories about where folks will go into, old folks' homes or homes where folks are not able to do things for themselves. And next thing you know, they're registered to vote and they're sending in absentee ballots. So we need to make sure that is taken care of. And Isaiah, you're telling me there's someone else on the line. Thank you so much for calling in. You're on the air.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Vickie, I am concerned about one thing.
Yes, sir.
My granddaughter lives close to Glenwood funeral area, cemetery.
Okay.
And she's seeing people out there with laptop computers going through there, and they're typing in information.
Okay. Okay.
And my concern is that these people are going to end up on our voting roll.
Okay. That's a good, thank you for alerting me to that. And something I'm going to ask you to do, and then I'll try to follow up as well. Make sure when you see that, just have her take a quick picture and then maybe email that. Because, there are other reasons for people to be in cemeteries, like genealogical folks who are doing family tracing. And I have gone on to websites before, and it's because just checking out family history, and it will actually show pictures of grave sites, and then will show you the name and everything. So there could be logging that way. But there is a provision that when they look for voters, the register, they make sure that they are alive. So there is that protection in place. But definitely take a picture, and we could email it to, since Glenwood is, I think, the city of Mooresville, we could absolutely look into that.
Yeah, because these people were moving from place to place. They were just going right down rows.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you for letting me know about that. But definitely see if you could have her or you email in and see, and I can absolutely see what I can do to get you an answer on that, because that is concerning. Thank you so much for the call. So we've got a few more minutes left, so I'm going to try to get through a few other things. The one thing that I'm very excited about is it's going to require election boards to acquire and use signature verification software for absentee ballots. It would require signature verifications for mail-in ballots, in addition to the court rules that also require 2 witnesses. So you can see that there's a ton of information how we're going to make our elections even more secure. I want you to know that this is things that we've heard from all of you, not just from some of you, and we're continuing to work through all of that. We only have a couple more minutes, and we got some other things that are going on. I want to make sure you guys are very aware of that. We are still in the budget process. Remember, this is a $31 billion or $32 billion with a B budget. It is a big deal. But what you see out there is not what you're going to get. This is just round 2 of a draft, and we go back and forth. Remember, the House did the first draft. The Senate does the second draft. They're coming together, and we're coming together this week and next week to finalize and work out the differences between the two, and then it moves through the General Assembly process. So we are continuing to work through the budget. So if you see something in there you like and don't like, doesn't mean that it's going to be that way. It just means that there may be something like it's a negotiating tool. So I want to let you guys know that. But as always, thank you so much for listening in, and I want to thank Becky Gray from Blue Cross and Blue Shield for coming in and explaining a very difficult topic in a very clear and concise way. I will be back with you next week, and I'm so excited that you all continue to listen and to call into the show. Hopefully, we will have some more in-depth Raleigh news because there's a lot here to unpack because it's moving so fast. But thank you so much for listening to We're Just Saying. I'm Senator Vickie Sawyer. Have a wonderful weekend and enjoy. Thank you.